everyone often asks me about what I teach. Usually what I teach is divided into three parts. I teach pranayam, and apart from pranayam I teach mantra yoga, and there are some specific mantras which are done over a specific period of time. Basically I'm a Sri Vidya Upasak, so it is related to Sri Vidya, but there are many other techniques that I learned. Apart from that, the third part is on the text, the spiritual text that we do, that we study. There is the Sankhya philosophy, the Yoga Sutras, the Bhagavad Gita, and Vedanta, and so on. So coming back to the main teaching, the main part that I teach publicly most of all is pranayam. Now the pranayam that we do, normally you'll find a lot of people saying that till you haven't perfected asana, you shouldn't be doing pranayam, or till you don't have this in place, you shouldn't be doing pranayam. Now pranayam is mainly consists of three parts to it. One is the exhalation, the inhalation, and the kumbhak, or the withholding of the breath. Withholding of the breath is the part which is the most difficult, and it has a negative effect on a person who's unprepared for it. So generally in the system we generally don't do withholding the breath. If we do it at all, it's for a very, very short period of time, so it doesn't have any negative effect on the body and the mind. Pranayam has a way of working in such a way that it starts removing stress and removes depression, clears out the mind, and eventually it gives you what Yoga Sutra says is gives you the possibility of the light from within being expressed outside, or of removing the darkness and the dirt around the light from inside you, and thereby making you closer to yourself and to God, to the Atman. So here what happens is that when we are doing the pranayam, the techniques, firstly one of the problems is that most of the people who come, they say that they are unable to sit for a long time. Now what happens is when you come for this pranayam, I have done courses in Russia and other places in Germany where people who have not sat in their lives, in one course there were people who never sat in their lives in a cross-legged position in the ordinary what we call sukhasana. They were able to sit there for almost, we did it for 5 hours. And in 5 hours, only once I really gave them a break for some time, and the rest of the time they sat for all these 5 hours without any problems. And I was telling this to somebody, and he was so surprised. He said, Swamiji, they must have sat through some grace or something, because otherwise it is not possible for people to sit. But it's actually no grace. Basically what is happening is the techniques by themselves are developed in such a way that they naturally tend to clean up the mind and the body. They help the body and the mind to sit. So what happens at the physical level, normally when people breathe, firstly, their breathing is wrong. They don't breathe correctly. So the first thing that we do in this seminar is that we correct the pattern of breathing, because usually when you see a newborn child, he has a diaphragmatic breathing. This part of the body is called the diaphragm. And when you start breathing, this part in the normal sense should work automatically. But because of a bad position, especially a bad sleeping positions, the breathing usually becomes either chest breathing or it becomes stomach breathing. So one of the things we do here is that we first we work on trying to straighten out this breathing pattern. Usually the seminar is for 12 hours. It is divided into about, from depending on how and where, it can be 3 hours, 5 hours and 4 hours, or 4 hours, 5 hours and 3 hours, or it can be 4 into 3 hours, or it can be 3 into 4 days. So depending on how much time is available. So if it is just 3 days, it may be into 4 hours into 3 days, for example, and that works out to 12 hours. So on the physical level, the breathing becomes better, and because when the breathing is better, what happens is that certain aspects of it affects the mind, and that in turn affects the body, and therefore the body starts feeling much better, and there is a relief in that. And if you observe generally a person who is sick, the person who is sick will often land up having a heavy breathing or a disturbed breathing. Now, if you are sick, your breathing is disturbed. If you change your breathing pattern, a certain aspect of the sickness will be, it will be reduced, or it will be treated to a certain extent. Now that the breathing will treat it 100%, that can also happen possibly, but that is not a guarantee. It may happen, it may not happen. So, but from the physical point of view, when the breathing is corrected, automatically, because of that correction in the breathing, a certain part of the physical aspect of the body, certain physical problems, certain diseases, if they don't vanish, they definitely reduce. From the point of view of the mental and emotional part, which is the most interesting part to me to work with, I have met many people who come to me, they're emotionally disturbed, and they are unable to sit still, they are unable to even function in life properly. Some of them are very, very disturbed because of some emotional upsets, maybe a broken heart or depression or aggression or some other such thing. Pranayam has this beauty that it starts cleaning out these negative emotions. So when somebody goes through this 12-hour program, I usually say it's like putting your clothes into a washing machine, and when they come out, they're clean. So it's exactly like that. If you've done the 12 hours properly the way you were supposed to, and the techniques are extremely subtle, so it's not a heavily physical exercise where you really need to put in a lot of physical effort. So what happens is you start doing the practices, and slowly, little by little, in 12 hours, you find that your whole mind is sort of, in a certain sense, washed out or cleaned out of all the negative emotions, and you come out sort of feeling really fresh and light, and your body feels lighter. You feel you're able to. People who usually do the course, I find that they say, Swamiji, even our senses are different. We can smell different things. We can hear differently. We see things and they seem brighter, and there's a whole change in the entire outlook of the mind. And the mind is generally more sensitive. It's able to pick up negative and positive energies, for example. And that is one of the other aims, that we try and make sure that people who come to this course, many of who have never been able to feel any spiritual energy, are able to feel spiritual energy. Then at the intellectual level, when you start working, the mind is cluttered with all these negative emotions, and so the intellect is not able to take a lot of correct decisions because of all these negative emotions. But when you start working regularly with this pranayam, or even if you do this one course, the one course itself removes a whole lot of negative emotions. And so what happens is that all the negative emotions that are disturbing you vanish, and your mind starts functioning better. Now, because these negative emotions which are there in your mind, they also produce a certain amount of stress. And so normally I find companies spending thousands of rupees or even dollars to take people through a stress management program. But that stress management, it doesn't really remove the stress. Now in this case, there's an actual removal of stress, So I find that because these negative emotions leaving the person, he or she feels much lighter and happier, because all that negative stuff which was disturbing them has left their minds and their bodies. And so the decision-making process becomes more effective, it becomes clearer, the efficiency of the person in terms of working becomes better. And then from the spiritual perspective, if the person is practicing, he will find that if he is doing mantra, for example, he will find that his mantra is working faster and better, and he is able to go into deeper states. If he is doing meditation, he finds that he is able to go into deeper states of meditation. At all points in time, even personally, I've been practicing for so many years, but I find that whenever I conduct a seminar of pranayam and I get to do these 12 hours, 15 hours myself, because in my personal practice I do not always have time to do so much pranayam. I might be doing more of mantra jap and other practices, and maybe some pranayam. But when I do a program, I get equal amount of time as much as anybody else. And I find that even personally it helps me in my spiritual practices. I'm able to do much better in the spiritual practices. So basically, when you go through this pranayam program, it will work on the physical level, on the mental and emotional level, on the intellectual level, and on the spiritual level. It works at all 4 levels. And generally speaking, the person feels much lighter. It's really, really good for all those people who have a lot of problems with depression and stress and anger and, all kinds of other mental issues. And I find that one of the courses which we did, I especially got this organized, and a psychologist brought to me some of our patients, and we worked with them, and I was amazed at the results. We did an 11-hour program, and in 11 hours there was an enormous change in all these people. So this is the basic teaching which I give in terms of pranayam. The mantra yoga is more specific, of course, but people who are interested in mantra yoga, then people who've done this pranayam, who are already in a position where this cleaning has taken place. Of course, it has to be repeated. It's not like if you do it once, it's forever. But even if somebody does it twice a year, that's a great relief for many people. And once somebody has done this course, then if they're interested in going further, then there are certain practices which can be given to them at an individual level. And then we have a program for healing through mantras, in which there are certain mantras which are taught which are for healing people and things like that. So people interested in that may also be interested in learning how to heal and stuff like that. So this is how the teaching process generally goes. Thank you for your time.